Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to take you through some of these new AI builders that are blowing up on social media right now. I'm talking about tools like Lovable, Bolt, and Cursor. I'm going to talk you through exactly what they are, how I think you can use them the best, and what I think is FUD and what is actually gold and something that you should really take note of to make the most of this booming industry, which I think is going to 10 times at least in the next year alone. If you're not familiar with who I am, my name's Adam. I'm a top-rated freelancer on Upwork, which is where I started my AI and NoCode career. Doing over 50 projects there and becoming expert vetted, I transitioned into a global low-code development agency called APG Software. And since then, we've developed over 250 projects in the low-code and AI space for clients all over the globe. So I've been in this industry for a while. I'm pretty familiar with some of the ways that people are building these products in rapid timeframes. And I wanted to give you my opinion on exactly what these tools are and where I think they're going to be headed. So the way I've laid this out is we've got our new AI builders on the right of this whiteboard here. And I'm going to talk through what they are, the benefits, some of the trade-offs that exist there right now. I'm going to compare that to some of the traditional ways of building things and also some of the low-code ways which were and still are really popular, but why I think this is beneficial in certain areas and this approach is beneficial for other areas. And then I'll talk you through what I think we're going to end up with for building really scalable, rapid applications in the next year or so. So I'll go through, walk you through the pros and cons of each of these, and then talk through what I think the best stack is going to be in the future. And if you're someone that's looking to get into this space and learn some tools, I'd really recommend exploring this kind of combination. Now, to start off with, let's talk about these tools, what they're useful for, and can you actually build million-dollar applications that can scale on these tools? Now, what these tools are really, really good for is rapid prototyping. Now, if you've played around with any of these tools and you've put a well thought out prompt into a tool like Lovable, you'll see a pretty incredible response come out. You'll get a number of pages generated. They'll be mobile responsive. You can click around in there, and those prototypes used to take months just to build. So what used to take months can be done in around about a minute these days. And so this is really powerful. Now, there's a lot of benefits to this, and I think this is really going to shake up the MVP development industry in general. And there's a number of reasons why something like this is preferable to what used to be what low-code tools were used for, which was rapid prototyping and MVP development. The benefits of this over using a tool like Bubble to build an MVP are you get access to your source code. Now, we work with a lot of startup founders, a lot of which have investors or they're in some sort of startup accelerator, and having access to the source code is really important for them because if they were to scale to $1 million application, they don't want to be locked into a vendor and not have access to their own source code. So whilst I love Bubble, I think it's a really powerful tool. One of the things that scares a lot of founders from using a tool like this is the fact that they don't have access to their own source code. And if something was to happen to a company like Bubble, it may damage their application. Now, I don't think this is a big issue for anyone that's trying to scale an app, and there's a million ways you can get around something like that. A lot of companies trust big CRM platforms and all sorts of big platforms to store their data. I think that's really something that you're gonna have to sacrifice in your company in some way or another. But in saying that, for building an application, this is a really big plus. In addition to that, you could make some pretty rapid iterations, so you can put it out for feedback and these AI builders can make changes rapidly. And I actually think that pretty soon, founders will not need software agencies to do this MVP testing stage. So typically what happens is a founder gets funding, they approach a software development agency, they go, this is our idea, and the software development agency gets that idea and builds the MVP because founders often are not that tech savvy and they don't know how to convert their idea into a tech product. This is going to change the game because they can use natural language to prompt to some sort of AI tool and get an MVP without needing the input of a software agency at all. Now, there are some red flags here, and I'll talk about that in a second, but MVP development and validating ideas is about to be something that's accessible to anybody and can be done in just a couple of minutes, which is an absolute game changer to how things have been operating for the past 20 years. And what low-code solutions like Bubble were trying to do was enable people who had no tech skills to build apps. In saying that though, tech is very complicated, and if you don't understand the fundamentals of how tech works, you are still going to have trouble building scalable applications using a tool like Bubble because it gives you the customization to build scalable apps, but you need to understand how to set tech up properly because what you can easily do if you're not familiar with tech is build what they call spaghetti code or spaghetti apps. So apps that are built in a way that is not scalable and workflows and your database structure and everything is not built in a scalable way. And early stage founders who haven't been in the tech industry for a while tend to make a lot of those critical mistakes. And what I can see happening here is that being magnified, because these founders are generating applications. They don't actually understand what's being done in the background. They don't understand the code that they're generating. And so whilst this is going to be awesome for building MVPs, building scalable applications on top of that is where the challenge is going to be. And so what I've done up here is I've said 0 to 0.8 very, very quickly, which is awesome. And for getting just a couple users in your local area or validating a market with some beta users, this is probably going to be enough. But from getting from 10 users to 100, 1,000, 10,000, whatever the case is, that's going to be a real challenge on tools like Lovable, Bolt, and Cursor at the moment. Now, I'm not saying that that's not going to change possibly in the next couple months, but currently for a founder that has no tech skills, they can get to here and then they have to hire a traditional tech team, and it's going to be slower from that point forward. And some of the things to be aware of when building with these tools. One is AI errors and rabbit holes. So people that are building with this, you can build really, really quickly, but you don't understand the code that's happening behind the scenes and the way certain processes are being undertaken. And what can happen there is you can have some pretty serious issues with privacy. So data privacy, who can view what data is being exposed in the client, what data is not being exposed in the client, where data is being sent. You might be making a number of API requests and you do not actually understand what data is being sent and received, what's being exposed and what's not. So I can see a lot of issues popping up, at least at the moment, in the privacy space. And next up is rabbit holes with the AI agent. Now you might build 0 to 0.8, but then when you're trying to set up possibly a third-party connection to, let's say, Stripe, for example, or you're trying to make small changes, sometimes the AI can get really confused and it can have trouble debugging your issue and fixing your code. And this leaves founders pretty helpless because they're sitting there with a whole stack of code that they have no idea how it works. And being able to debug these things is really, really difficult. So as the LLMs get better at writing code, this issue is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, but it does exist currently. And at the end of the day, you're still using code. And this is what I'm going to talk about in terms of the future I think this is going. But at the end of the day, you're still using code, and software developers are expensive and building with code is expensive. The reason for that is because it's still slower to build with code than to build with visual development interfaces like Bubble has, especially for its back end. It's a lot easier to visually look at Bubble's backend workflows and understand exactly what's happening than to look at some code and understand exactly how that's performing. So this still has the advantage in that space. So to talk about where I think app development is going to go between these two approaches to building apps in the future is I think we have three different kinds of apps. We have SaaS applications, we have what I call two-sided marketplaces, and we have internal tools and CRMs. Almost all of the apps that comes to our agency door is one of those three categories. And in my opinion, I think SaaS applications and two-sided marketplaces will start to get built more on tools like Lovable, Bolt, and Cursor than on tools like Bubble. And the reason for that is because these apps are really hit and miss. A lot of these apps fail in the first 5 years because they're really difficult to get off the ground. But if they do get off the ground, they can often scale to hundreds of thousands or millions of users. And so having access to a scalable tech stack like Supabase and using Lovable for your front end is going to be more preferred by founders than being locked into some sort of tool like Bubble, not getting access to their source code, and having to deal with a backend that is not as efficient as something like Supabase and doesn't scale as well price-wise. So I think we're gonna see MVPs for SaaS applications and two-sided marketplaces going to be really common in this space. Where I think tools like Bubble still have the advantage is for internal tools and CRMs. And the reason for that is internal tools and CRMs typically have a couple hundred users, but they're not trying to scale to millions of users because it's kept internal to a company and they're just supposed to process a company's internal operations. And what's really important in a company's internal operations is exactly how the data's moved around and stored. And what Bubble and NoCode tools still have a large advantage over these tools like Lovable, Bolt, and Cursor is one, you get truly no code, which means you can understand what's happening, especially in your backend workflows, a lot easier than with a tool like Lovable and Supabase. And the benefit of this is companies have really specific processes. When a certain user clicks this button, they want to send data to 3 different separate third-party tools and then post data into their database and then upsert that into a vector database and all sorts of technical things. And so you really have to understand a business's processes and be really specific in those backend workflows. And that takes a deep understanding automation of processes, and it's going to be something that's hard to communicate to an AI tool like Lovable, Bolt, and Cursor, at least at this stage. So I think there's still the advantage there. The other advantage is that these tools handle all of the hosting, server management. It's one-click deployment. And so for an internal company that just wants a simple internal tool that's going to sit there, it's going to do their processes, and they want to have as little maintenance as possible, I think you're still going to have some benefits in this area for that industry. And the other thing is a single source of truth. So you've got your database, your front end, your back end, and even your mobile application all sitting in one place. It's simple to manage, it's easy, it's visual to see, and that's what a lot of internal companies are looking for. They want simple, easy to manage, but still do all of the processes and handle all the complexity that is in their business. And so for these companies, vendor lock-in is not as big of an issue because they're not predicted to have the scale to millions of users that typically SaaS and two-sided marketplaces have to worry about if they can get off the ground. They just want something that's simple, easy to manage, and does what their business needs. And so I think tools like Bubble and NoCode are still going to be pretty strong in that space for the foreseeable future. Now, that being said, what I think could be a really powerful benefit in the future, and if you are looking to get into this space, learn some low-code tools, learn some AI tools, and start to sell solutions, a stack like this I think is going to be really, really powerful in the next few months and years. Now, what have I got here? Where I think these tools like Lovable and Cursor are still lacking at this current point in time is having a really nice and easy to see back-end workflow builder that tools like Bubble, Make.com, Zapier, and n8n have. So what I think is a really powerful stack is using a tool like Lovable for your front end to be able to build really modern looking user interfaces for all your different screen sizes rapidly. Now, Lovable is a great solution for your front end. Supabase is a great solution for your database. It's very scalable, it handles authentication, it handles whatever you need to handle. It's fairly user-friendly and it's easy to use. But setting up edge functions and stuff like that, you're dealing with code, and there is a bit of a learning curve there. And we've got these tools that have come out now, like tools like n8n, which are essentially where you can build back-end operations to process data. You can self-host these solutions, and they're really powerful for building AI agents and integrating AI into your backend. So if you were to use some sort of backend like n8n, call it via API through your tool like Lovable, and post the data from n8n into a database that's in Supabase. I think that's a really scalable tech stack. It's fairly no code, so it's fairly easy to understand, and it's really optimized for AI and AI development. So something like this, I think, is a really solid tech stack, and it's something that our business will look to shift to if we start to build more SaaS and two-sided marketplaces in the next few months. We're fully aware that this is the direction that tech is heading, but whether or not now is the right time to jump into this, I still think there's a couple of months left where I'm just waiting for the LLMs to get a little bit more accurate, waiting for some of these tools to fix a few of the little nuances that are currently still in them. So we're still building a lot of these solutions with Bubble, but we're looking to niche down into building internal tools with Bubble because I think it's still a great place for companies to build simple internal tools. But SaaS and two-sided marketplaces and even internal tools in the future, I think a tech stack like this is the future of where software development is headed and how you can build rapid MVPs in 1 or 2 weeks. So this is a really, really solid tech stack. In saying that, I'd love to hear your opinion on where you think the future of tech is going for building apps for companies from 1 to 100 employees and rapid growing startups, and what your opinion on a really solid tech stack for building these MVPs on scalable infrastructure in just a couple of days or weeks. Feel free to let me know in the comments what your opinions are. If you're interested in staying up to date in everything low code and AI, feel free to join my completely free community in the link in the description. We have weekly discussions where we talk about all things AI and low code. And yeah, I hope you found this useful. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on the directions that this tech is going. Have a good day.